started. I don't know, Lucy, if you wanted to do the honors or if you want me to go through and get things started. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Sorry.
I can get a flag, Lucy, if you'd like.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm losing half of my picture. Okay, there we go. Okay, are we recording? Yes,
Yep,
okay.
go ahead.
I'd like to call the Student Achievement Committee meeting to order of December 4th, 2024 at 4:03, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, item number 3 is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Lindsay, do you have anybody?
I don't see any, Lucy.
Okay, move on to number 4, approval of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Gina, and seconded by Lindsay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, item number 5, approval of minutes, November 13, 2024. Do we have any, well, we need a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 13th, 2024.
Okay,
Second,
by Lindsay, and
second, Bob.
that's Bob, he's here somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Item number 6, curriculum review. The first part is the high school course proposals acceptance. And I know we received a whole bunch of information on that. I think are we going to break it up into the 3 sections? The first one was the those classes that were already in the program of studies that did not go through student achievement. We could start with those.
Sure. I mean, I wasn't at the last meeting, but somebody just stopped me if I repeat something. And so everything we gave you is what I think back in, I don't know, what was it, Tina, September, October, we talked about trying to get in, and then you asked for the scope and sequence of the curricula, of the ones that
Mhm.
we didn't have full curriculums of, I believe, or curricula of.
Right.
The language teacher, I want to make sure. And so we went back and we did that. So those are in there. Those are the ones that have been running. And then, Katie and I did quickly look at the minutes from your last meeting that I was not at. And there was some discussion about whether full curriculum, also if you guys wanted the scope and sequence, but there was nobody reached out to me. And so we can certainly still do that if we get permission to keep it in the program of studies, if that's what the committee would like us to do and build. That's not too hard for any of us to do. But yeah, if we want to start with those, I mean, they're self-explanatory. Does anybody have any questions on anything they saw on any of those?
I just got just a couple. Go ahead. Deb.
No, good. No, I'm just done. I just had the top one.
Okay. Just under Unified Health, it didn't explain whether this was an elective or is this required? It's an elective.
It's an elective. Yep, it's a addition to our unified classes that can be taken by anyone, but will hopefully benefit some unified goals and objectives.
Okay, the other question I had was experimental design. How is this different from the science courses you have now? Because I'm sure they do experiments in those classes.
Yeah, so when Matt Tabor proposed this to us last year, and it's not due till the spring, he really wanted a true research course not that to your point, not that they don't do research in the other courses, but it was kind of like, pick your own adventure that we used to have with those books. This is like design your own research. And where do you start? What we found is kids are really good at maybe following directions of, here's the thing you need to look at, and here's where you should look. But when it comes to answering a question and developing the research about it, make it up. Why is the sky blue? That's really too easy because we know that they could find that, easily. But, what do we need to know? What are our controls? What are our, if we're going to be true researchers, what problem are we trying to solve? So he really wants it as a choose your own research course, where they decide on the course, they decide on the thing, they decide how they're going to research it, they decide how they're going to present it, and then they present it out. He has worked very hard over the past 2 or 3 years to have students design and lead his classroom. I think when I got there, I think he was probably one of the teachers that was very much like stand and deliver, right? Like I have a science curriculum to do. And so he would do his science curriculum and he was great at it. And then he quickly realized after COVID, like he's having trouble engaging the kids again, right? And so he's like, I'd really like to do this, like, let's do some experiments, but they can't be my experiments. They have to be the kids' experiments because he wants to hook them back into loving science. So it would be able to also go cross-curricular. So if they're working in a business class, say, and they have a problem to solve, they know the steps to solving the problem, not just jumping to, well, we should make more of these t-shirts because we sold 3 already.
So
So
I like
that's how.
the way, thank you. I like the way it's laid out with the fundamentals, applications, and then at the end is the independent. They don't just walk in the door and go independent. They've got some good background with it.
Correct.
Those are the only questions I had. Does anyone else have any questions? Thoughts?
I think I had a question about, and it's probably right in front of me, but just to clarify, is there a level like CPA, CPB, honors for this course? Yeah, no, I don't see it.
Which one? Which course?
The experimental design one.
No, it's set up as a half-year elective. So
Half-year elective.
it doesn't have a level associated with it.
Okay. Awesome. This is super exciting.
I can't wait to see it in action. He actually asked me for his evaluation to hold off and come like the first week of class, come in the middle of class, and come at the end of class so that we
Yeah.
can gauge, which I thought was fantastic with our new evaluation program. It really lends itself fantastically to something like that. So I'm excited to see it.
Right, right.
People
Yeah.
signed up.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Linda,
yeah,
we just started. We're on the second one, the experimental design.
Well, we didn't do, like, we didn't go through one at a time, but we're talking about experimental design now. Lucy started with a couple of questions she had. Yeah, so we didn't like go through finish unified health yet. But go ahead. Sorry, Lindsay, for interrupting.
Oh, that's exactly what you would say.
Linda, are you there? Ruh-roh.
Deb, since these courses have already been offered, are there people who have signed up for them for next semester?
Experimental design runs next semester, and I'm sorry because I don't have dual screens at home. I don't have the list in front of me. I'd have to make you guys little and look. But anything that's running, yes, has students in them and are ready to go. The art of teaching, is that in that top one,
Yeah.
Tina?
Yes, yep.
So the art of teaching is the Ed Rising grant. And they've started with the club piece of it. And so now the kids are like, wait, there's going to be a class. And so we are loading them into the classes now, the kids that are interested. We had one little girl, she wasn't little, one senior come
They're
down,
little.
they're little, and say, well, I want to go into teaching, but I don't think this is going to fit
You muted
Oh,
yourself,
you
Deb.
muted
No,
yourself.
I didn't touch it. Somebody muted me by accident. Katie, it was you. And
I
so
was
I
gonna say,
went
maybe,
in and
maybe it was by accident.
yeah, right, Linda. And so she came down and Katie had happened to be sitting there and she looked at her spring schedule and said, "Oh no, we can fit it in." And she was very excited. So, you know, we're loading those kids in now. We're gonna talk. Kevin has a meeting with Matt and Alexis next week, and we're gonna then talk to the kids to see who additionally can fit in. I think right now, Katie, do you remember the number? There's 12.
Something around there. It's been nice. And I mean, it's true people in perhaps future teacher fashion, they're willing to come well before the school day so that they can meet as a club at this point and just learn about more about the program and the offerings that are coming up. It's super exciting.
So we're targeting them first. So
Is that a-
That's it. You're welcome. Thank you.
We're all broken up. Linda, are you talking?
Yeah, sorry. Now I have to get gas because past Linda screwed over present Linda. Sorry. I am listening again. So as long as I have the floor, let me just throw out here, and I apologize. I have to do this on Zoom. It's been a hell of a week. I really have, I struggle with what my standard of having a curriculum is. I don't see a curriculum, and we're offering this. Children are going to be taking these classes, and I've seen various levels of a scope and sequence, but I've not seen any curriculum. And so without that, it is a bunch of activities, but I need to see an actual curriculum with assessments, with learning objectives, with enduring understandings, with essential questions, with a pacing guide. So that is my current frustration with all of the ones on that list. And I know that they fall in these different categories of currently, when we're talking about the ones that are going to be offered, I feel as though we're kind of put in a really bad position. I don't want to, quite frankly, I don't want to say yes to any of them because there's no curriculum. But you've put us in a position where now it's going to be like, well, the board won't do it because, and so now we have to go backwards.
wait, Linda,
yeah.
Linda, one question about the art of teaching. That is the
Yep.
Ed Rising curriculum that we
Oh,
had to
right,
purchase with.
yes. No,
So-
and so let me, like I said, let me just take because I happen to have the floor. There are several of them that are coming from other places that do, and so I apologize, that do have that curriculum because it's coming from other places. The ones that are homegrown, I don't see a curriculum. So correct. Ed Rising, I'm down with. The EMT, I think it is. There's a curriculum that is a part of it. My concern are the ones that are more homegrown, that we're not getting from someone else. So like I said, I'm not inclined for any of the ones beyond the immediacy to, I wouldn't say no to any of them, but I'm not comfortable saying yes because there's no curriculum.
So like,
And then,
so like, so experimental design like that. So I could have brought it last year. And then this year would have been the pilot year and the time to write the curriculum while they're, they've got their scope and sequence. Now, that's a little bit different. You might not have heard me explaining it to Lucy. It's a little bit more student-led. And so I don't know, his rubrics. I don't know if he's developed his rubrics and those kind of things. We haven't uploaded them. He's been working on it. And I think Liza can tell you or Stephanie can tell you, he did have curriculum time last summer. He's had more time this fall to work on it. So, something like that, I agree with you, while not fully developed, also in what I would call the pilot stage, because it hasn't actually run yet. Fire science is the one that the fire department brought to us. Berlin had a similar program, and the fire department decides which parts of the fire science they want. Fire Science 1, which is a state mandated, as you know, like not mandated, state run course. They decide the fire department actually works alongside Craig with, in that case with his own 92, to decide what parts of fire science they complete. If, I guess, if at your suggestion, you want in Liza's form, which we just are working on, right? The form we want for curriculum and assessment and all those things to be in the same form across all things, we can certainly get it into that form and get that done. Anything we've been running, I feel confident, Linda, that, you know, we can get into the form and show you like the rubrics and the assessments and all the things without any hesitation. I know that might not make you feel better, but that's what I can offer you.
No, if they exist, that is how, and that to me is what should be part of this conversation. Is I want to see a full curriculum. And I will also say, and I think I've said before, but full stop, whether it's a pilot or not, a curriculum needs to exist before you can offer a class.
So our
Period.
problem, right, so our problem with that, Linda, is like the ones in the next section, like if we put in to offer them and they spend the summer before developing a fully developed curriculum, we put it in the program of studies and only 3 kids join it or request it, then I feel like we've poorly spent curriculum money in developing a curriculum before we know that the kids are going to want to take it. It's like an egg and chicken thing. And
Well, no, because what you do is you look for not what a teacher wants to teach, but what a student wants to take. So you, at this time of year, you put out a survey to students, hey, next year, what are you interested in? These are some of our thoughts. And then you have enough of a base to say, hey, we think people are going to take this. And then you write the curriculum and then you offer it. And if they don't take it, you went on the best data you had at the time. It's not a waste. You still have it in the bank and you can offer it again sometime. I agree with you that if you just go out there because a teacher wants to teach a certain class and then that's not how it should happen. It should be student driven, not teacher driven. So, and like I said, we're in this very difficult position of these classes are going to run and we are responsible for approving it, but we have nothing to approve, right? We're supposed to approve curriculum, not classes, curriculum. The curriculum isn't there. There's nothing for us to approve. And honestly, and I understand we're playing catch up, but the bottom line is that's how you run a curriculum. Is you don't, it's not a fly by the seat of your pants and you create it while you're teaching it. You create it or you buy it and then you offer it. So like I said, we're in a position of approving something that doesn't exist. Sorry, that's all.
No, don't apologize. Do not apologize. You raised valid points, and I'm glad that you clarified too, like what we would be looking for in terms of curriculum. You know, those enduring understandings, learning objectives, essential questions, all of that. I was curious. Actually, no, I'm going to save my questions.
You're gonna save your questions?
I'm going to save my question just for a little bit because I'm still ruminating over what Dr. Darcy has, presented us with.
Yeah. Jamie?
So I do see both points, Linda, certainly, have structure developed prior to offering it. I do also see Deborah's point with, do we spend the resources to develop something? I don't know what the process is when students join up to classes. I would love to see what your criteria is for how many people are you required to run it. It really is kind of unfair to have a class run with 3 students and another person having 27. I see this every day. We have what we call an exploratory process for new incoming freshmen. And it's like a competition. It truly is. How many people want culinary? How many people want carpentry? How many want hairdressing? There's always certain ones. I mean, that's healthy. That's good. Good competition is really nice. And obviously we have curriculum already developed. But one thing that our district is doing that would be really, I think, interesting and good for this district is equate every single lesson plan to some sort of a component of vision of the graduate. I don't know what we're calling it. I forget what we decided to call it, but every district is doing this now. And like, what life skill are they going to get? Have some connection every single lesson. That to me is an important part of every lesson plan through as you develop the curriculum as you go.
So to answer your question, you may remember, Jamie, when I got to the high school, you were on the board and it was put into my purview to not run those classes, to your point, of 5, 6, 3. So we set the threshold at 10 to run the class when we decide. So you know the process, but for everyone's edification, the process now is we need the book done before we go out on break, kind of what I had put in that timeline. We need the course of studies book done because by mid-January, we're discussing with kids where and what they should take. And then they're registering in February. Our registration numbers then drive our meetings with our team leaders who have already met with their own teachers. They get those numbers and they decide, okay, how many sections of geophysical do we need? How many sections of biology do we think we need? How many sections of algebra 1 do we need? How many, whatever that is, they kind of sit with their teams and talk about it. Then they bring it to Katie and I, and we sit and we say, well, when you do it this way, because then when you load them, you can have 2 sections of algebra 1 at 20 apiece, but actually one class comes out, unfortunately, you have to fix it, but 30 and the other class comes out 5, right? And so then you spend the summer balancing those classes so you can make them work. But when I got up to the high school, the board was very clear with me that any of these classes or co-taught classes that were basically under 10 at registration shouldn't run. And so that's kind of where my threshold lies, unless it's a course like 10, this is the wrong number, but like I tried to put 26 in a chemistry course and I can't, right? Because at 20, I think it's 25. Somebody might have to correct me, Katie, if I'm wrong. Like
24.
for lab purposes, you can't have more than that. Or in EMT, I think our threshold is 14, 12 to
It's
14.
like a specific number, yeah, or even take some of our music electives, something like guitar or our new keyboard class. I mean, all of that is supposed to be self-paced and it's about self-growth with musicianship. So, Tim and Aaron very articulately expressed to us the need to keep those numbers a bit lower so that they can provide that individualized instruction that is the purpose and the spirit of the course.
So it sounds to me like a lot of this is also intertwined with your huge job to do a master schedule. I know that's a big thing, and that dictates, the quality of the whole year that's coming up. When do you start that process?
So we'd like to have the course of studies done before we leave for Christmas break, because when we get back from Christmas break, well, we actually go talk to the middle schoolers. We're going on December 16th, which we won't have our course booklet done by next week. Well, we might, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We might. And then we go talk to them on the 16th. And then during exams, we go down and help the freshmen, 8th graders register because we're available late January to go help them. And then our school registers in February. And then we spend the majority of March and April trying to sort it all out. That's one of the reasons why we always come back to you guys and we say, okay, there's 100 students in the 8th grade, but we may only get 80. And it makes it very difficult. We don't know which 20 aren't coming, what levels they're in. But if we do 2 algebra 1 classes and there's 30 altogether, we really ideally want 2 classes of 15. But now if 7 of those kids drop out over the summer, they're not dropping out of school. You know what I mean? They go to another school. Now we try to put those kids together into one class. So it loosens up. It's as you said, it's a process. And I want to, give the board credit where credit is due of saying, when I got there, there were a lot of classes, and I mean core classes running under that 10 threshold, some of them with team teachers. And so it was one of the things that Lucy, you and Bob may remember, was one of the things that you guys really pressed me to look at, because when I gave you that presentation on the number of kids in some of those classes, it was a little appalling when you've got 25 in a 5th grade class. And I understand that because that's where I came from.
Deb,
So-
can
Oh,
I
go
ask a
ahead.
question? how many of these classes in the first group are running right now? Or are all of them for the spring semester?
So fire science and the art of teaching and experimental design, am I right, Katie? Are all running in the
I
spring.
believe everything is the spring except for
EMT.
EMR, because EMR and fire science, we purposely schedule first half, second half. So students who might be interested in that career pathway would have like a logical flow in their schedule. And exercise science is currently running as well. And that's one of our dual enrollment course offerings as well, which is super exciting.
So do we have the curriculum for the courses that are currently running?
Not for all of them, no.
And can we get the curriculum for the ones that are starting in February, before February?
So the
So my,
courses
can
that
I,
are running right now are EMR and Introduction to Exercise Science. Both of those curriculums should be available through those links.
So we could approve them according to Linda's concern.
do you know by any chance off the top of your heads, how many students are in those two classes currently?
I don't know. I don't know how to access that. I mean, I do, but Katie,
Sure,
I just don't know. if we're
but we
prepared.
also could prepare them and send you the numbers after if you would like.
Right, because she'd have to go through individually and see how many are in there. It's up to you.
Right, or you click on the teacher's roster, and you can do it that way in PowerSchool too. But my, so I did have a couple of questions. So writing curriculum is cumbersome. It's a lot, we would run and I know a lot of the people on this call participated in the sessions where we would meet, and it would be days where we would sit and we would start progressing through and biting into what it is that we needed to get together to either revise, review, or create new courses. And I was on the end of the creating new courses piece, and I totally get how heavy that process is and like how costly it could be, right? But we have said, while I'm thinking about it, Liza had mentioned at the last meeting that there was money for curriculum. Have the teachers, and you don't have to tell me who, and you don't have to tell me how many or how much, it's a yes, no question. Have the teachers who have been working on scope and sequence and looking at curriculum been getting compensated for that?
They were offered compensation. I don't believe anyone put in for it.
Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. All right. I'm glad that they were offered. That's good. That's great. I did have, so Linda, my question for you would be, in terms of what components of curriculum, if we could say, I mean, these classes are running, 2 of them are running, 4 of them are in the queue. Do I wish that this had come to us earlier? Yes, but there really is nothing we can do per se about that right now. Like, can't go back in time. But are there components of curriculum that you think would be critical to have on hand prior to getting out the gate semester 2? Like if the teacher who's teaching that, I mean, the whole reason for having curriculum is being able to show that the kids are learning something. So even in a class where it is a choice and a design, there are still standards and goals and objectives and essential questions that can be formulated there. There are still ways to assess choice that, looks different than a standard assessment, like on a Scantron for, a biology class, right? But there are ways to assess, and they're very cool ways to assess. Like, those could be things that we do see now before we get into that, because we need to. And then the other reason for assessment, for having this documented somewhere, is like, God forbid something happens to somebody and they have to step out for a period of time. Somebody needs to be able to come in and meet our kids where they are without reinventing the wheel, right? They should be able to pick up a scope and sequence, essential questions, a series of assessments, and say, okay, let's go, let's do this. So Linda, is there anything that currently we would want to see, or that you would want to see, we would want to see prior to semester 1, and then say by the end of the school year, we would like to see XYZ?
Yeah, let me, can you hear me first of all?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, just checking. I'm going to actually also, I will answer that, but number one, I also want to say that it is actually, in my opinion, it is not a good sign that the teachers are not accepting money for writing curriculum, because that is telling me that they don't understand and they are not, it is not being communicated to them how hard it is, how important it is, and how professional, what the, I mean,
It's
you know,
not,
a lot of times
Linda,
when you,
Linda,
no,
it
I
was
just,
ju-
like I said,
It
no,
was-
I hear you, but
it was the,
Hold
it was
on,
just the
hold on.
scope and sequences. It was like they, at the last meeting.
oh,
I
got
was
it,
at,
got it.
They were
Yeah.
offered time
Alright.
and money to do the scope and sequences because you guys wanted
Yeah.
those for the November meeting. So that
Yeah.
they will definitely accept money for curriculum.
Okay,
They
good.
know, they are clear. Oh, don't worry about that. They are clear
All
on
right,
it.
good. All right, so that's number one. Number two, and I have offered this in several different locations and spheres of my, dare I say, expertise. I will volunteer my time to come and work with people on curriculum writing. It is what I do. All right, so that is an offer that has been there for various content areas, different things that no one has yet to take me up on, but I am willing to use my expertise, my professional experience in service of Region 13 in many different ways. Because I'm not accepting money, there's no conflict of interest. Okay, so that's just another one, just put that out there as a blanket. And then coming back to your specific question, Tina, I feel very strongly that we need to have for each unit, right, of a course, we need to have, before it runs, the objectives. I am an understanding by design kind of gal, so, but that's very cumbersome, but something in the world of having those enduring understandings, essential questions, knowledge, and skills. I believe we need to have the summative assessments for every unit. And this is probably something that can be done at the end, not the beginning, but there should be at least one anchor activity, learning activity for each unit that is published in the curriculum. A list of resources, to your point, if something happens to someone and they can't finish the semester, someone should be able to walk in, pick up the curriculum and start teaching. And then I also, I focus often on vocabulary and tiered vocabulary for each unit to make it accessible for multilingual learners and students with learning disability. But there's other ways that you can put in ideas for differentiation or universal design for learning in the curriculum ahead of time. So to me, those are kind of non-negotiables. You have to have those learning objectives for summative assessments, anchor activities, and then the rest needs to be built and should be built for the ones being offered next year, not because there's more time. Like I said, I know we're in a crunch for February.
Right, so the ones that are offered next year, that was our plan, Tina. I think we said that, right? In the whatever we developed and you guys looked at previously, was if we decide to run it, that would be our summer work, is offering that time and that money for them to write the curriculum. And whether it's with, Linda or Liza or whoever's helping, I think, right? Did we write that in? I'm sorry, like I only came back on Monday.
Yes, there was
a
the
lot.
initial approval and the final approval that we went over last meeting for the courses. So the initial approval was because of the time crunch and then having to create that curriculum after the offering, because we weren't going to put it in the program of studies. Because after you put in the program of studies, there's still a decent amount of time to make that curriculum. So it was the initial approval and then that final approval after the curriculum was written.
Because it's for next year, right?
Yes.
That's the second set of course offerings
Correct.
that you're looking at here.
Um,
In the meantime, we're still looking at what's existing now, and the EMR course is running now. That already has a curriculum. The other class that's running is exercise science, which does not have a curriculum.
It does,
Oh, it does.
Yes, it
does.
does. Yep.
I'm sorry, it does. I
That's okay.
remember. So coming up in the spring is fire science, the art of teaching. What was the other two?
Unified health and experimental design.
Okay. So,
And the two that won't have specific curriculum are unified health and experimental design. Though experimental design, I believe, is in the throes. I mean, that's what he worked on this summer, right, Liza? But unified health does not have a curriculum to what Dr. Darcy is talking about. It has a scope and sequence and, but not the curriculum piece. That is also, and Tina, I'm sure you know this, as does anybody else, but in our unified program, though that assessing will look very different than typical assessments. They will be performance assessments with all the kids on different levels because all the kids are in such different levels. So, and it will depend on what they're doing. It could go from shoe tying to just verbal interactions. But yes.
I did, Lucy, I wanted to ask a question, and this is kind of like a big, like meta question, right? When I'm looking at the curriculum for example, which one was it? It was EMR. So that links to first responder national standard curriculum. I mean, we could probably fill in the blank with any program that doesn't come from like a UConn or an AP that has been designed specifically for high school students, right? Like we know that when we have AP Bio running, that curriculum, we're using it. We haven't developed it in-house. It's come from College Board, but it's geared toward high school students. So the language is the same with enduring understandings, learning objectives, essential questions, etc. The question that I have is when we have curriculum that we're using that wasn't created for high school kids or educational institutions, like the First Responder National Standard Curriculum. This is a 342-page document that was written to train first responders, which is fine for that purpose. But in terms of how it aligns with what we're looking for in terms of essential questions, enduring understandings, learning objectives that are geared toward high school, not just for the sake of being geared toward high school, but then to fulfill those requirements that we have of how does this align with what the state is asking of us? How does this align with our portrait of the graduate? How does this align with what students are being expected to learn during their high school experience? I think like we have to have a conversation too at some point. This may not be the point, but what does that do? Like how can we take the curriculum that's coming from a non-educational organization and put that into terms that are consistent with what we are building in-house? Do you know what I mean? Because right now, like in this EMR, no, what is it? I keep losing it. Yeah, EMR.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the 300-something page document, and it doesn't have essential questions or enduring understandings. There's no like, this is the anchor or this is the final assessment. It's got a lot of, lesson plans for instructors to teach, but it's not quite in alignment with, what our high school curriculum looks like.
Absolutely. And that's where you're right. It's going to be a little different. And I think it bodes a conversation for any courses that we want to have in the future that have a certification potential at the end.
Right.
Because if we ever move into, say, an LPN program, right, we're not going to make up our own, and I know you're on board with, like, we're not going to make up our own what an LPN should know and do. It's going to be, they're going to sit for the LPN exam after we teach them the stuff like other schools do, or even, to EMR, EMT, there's kids that sit for that. The summative assessment is sitting for the certification exam and passing it, like, like you do with APs, you sit for it, you may not pass it, but at least we know you have some general understanding. So yeah, I agree with you very much that I think for maybe it goes into a separate category of certification programs.
Mm,
Because, you know, there's a whole bunch of IT certification programs. I can speak because of my son. There's Google IT certs, there's Microsoft IT certs. They're not going to look the same
Right.
as, you know, well, I won't use experimental design, but exercise science. It just won't look the same.
Right.
But maybe and that's a good one, Liza and Stephanie, to put on your radar if we're going to continue to pursue some of these certificates. That's a different category. I agree with you, and that's a bigger conversation.
And so maybe when we're looking too at the curriculum handbook and the revisions that go into the curriculum handbook, I think that's actually a really great, if there is going to be a category for separate certifications, right? Because they will need to follow different structures. Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you,
Great.
that's helpful.
Okay. So then the question is, going forward, what are we summarizing here for this first group of courses that we have here? Two of which that are running, you're talking about certifications, and there's curriculum, but it's different. It's written differently. But at least they have something more than just a scope and sequence.
Right.
And then there's the other ones that are being offered. The Art of Teaching does have a curriculum.
Right. In terms of what Linda mentioned, so to have, like, we have all the UBD, frameworks, and Liza, you redid those, what do you call it? The forms and the templates, that's the word. But how realistic would it be for the start of semester 1, have the teachers who are teaching the courses that don't have curriculum yet for semester 2 to have the objectives, enduring understanding is essential questions, that list that Linda, I wrote it down, I will copy and paste it into the chat. Like, how realistic do you think it would be to have, sorry, I'm just have that ready? With the understanding that as the year progresses, that will get fleshed out, deeper.
I believe it could be possible, especially with experimental design. I know he did do and has been doing a lot of work. So
Great.
if it's a matter of putting it into the template,
Mhm.
I think that we could probably make that happen. I will have to double check with him.
Like you said, the Art of Teaching, I think taking the Art of Teaching and, you know, while I'm not a fan of just whatever, like, I think we could find those, it doesn't even have to be Alexis necessarily who finds the things in the lesson plans. I mean, like I said, we were required to buy that through the grant. So I go, I get a little bit, but we can at least identify those things, Liza. I would think we would be able to with Matt's help, because he's so involved in that whole thing. And then, so it was experimental design, and what was the other one? Again, I'm
There's
sorry.
Unified Health, Experimental
Oh,
Design,
Unified Health.
Art of Teaching, Fire Science, and Introduction to Economics, we keep forgetting to say.
So Unified Health, I think, too, I mean, I think that lends itself easily to these things. I can't say that we would have, I'd say we would have an anchor activity for each of the units, but as far as a summative assessment, I mean, like I said, that's going to look much different. But to list the knowledge and skills they'll get, and then, the enduring understandings, those are going to be pretty much the same in all the units. We're teaching inclusion and health skills and why it's important to maybe, brush your teeth and not pick your nose in public. Like, those are the things.
luck.
And yeah, I know it's great fun. But as
Wait,
we all
what?
know,
I'm not supposed to be doing that?
well, it's a peer taught class. So they do listen more to their peers sometimes. I don't know. But yeah, I think we could definitely do that for Unified Health and for what was the other one we just said? Unified Health and
Experimental design.
Right. And Intro to Economics has it. It's a UB articulated course, so we have it for that.
Great.
So I think it's really those two courses. So when you say before semester 2, I mean, unless Katie and Liza disagree with me, because we can certainly help with that process.
Great.
So that would be filling in the template that we went over last time for curriculum, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So
Mhm.
that, yeah, because we can get those templates going for the curriculum.
And those, you're right. And Linda said it very well, like those are our catch-up classes, right? And that
Mhm.
is where we are on those, and we're happy to do that to make it better. And then next year, everything should be in place. And if it's not, then that's a shame on us. And then we wouldn't even ask you to keep it in there. You know what I mean? Like that is not okay. And I understand that. I know it's a geez, sorry.
Okay. So, in the end, I mean, if they look good. I mean, we did talk about this in terms of numbers. It would just be nice, and it's not an urgent thing, it's more a curiosity to know, like, how many kids were really excited about the art of teaching or intro to economics, down the road. But if no one else has any questions about that, I don't know if we want to do this approval in chunks or if we want to just do it all in one at the end.
You probably should do it in chunks because they have different criteria. The
Okay.
first batch is we probably will approve them with the submission of a curriculum, a completed curriculum by the second semester or something to that effect.
Okay, so I would like to move to approve the courses listed.
We should probably list them this way, otherwise we
Okay,
might.
yep. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve Unified Health, Experimental Design. And we could write this later. It doesn't have to be right now. The Art of Teaching, EMR, Fire Science, Exercise Science, and Intro to Economics, pending the receipt of that additional information we discussed. And if we can probably list that additional information as well. It would be the objectives, enduring understandings, essential questions, summative assessments, at least one anchor learning activity published, list of resources, tiered vocabulary for each unit. And I can write that out.
I'll second that motion, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Seconded, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be helpful if you could lay it out because it's been put together in sections. So
Yep.
at least when the minutes come out, they'll come out with a complete motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
we've
so
got it.
Tina made the motion and was seconded by Lindsay. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, good. Any abstentions? Good.
Jamie raised his hand and Linda abstained.
Just gonna say aye, but I had my fake hand raised earlier. I was simply gonna state, I would love to see on a unit plan. I don't know if these require more than one unit to do this, but what is the desired outcome? What is the goal? What is are they supposed to be able to do? That has to be part of the whole thing. I know it's sort of like this assumed thing, but it should be written down. And I would love to see the template all teachers use. And I would love to see a Google Classroom created where teachers were required to submit their lessons for an upcoming unit by a specific date. It's just a good thing to just prepare. I see the value in that. And it's not to say we're unprepared, but it's just accountability, really. And it's not difficult. I'm required to submit lessons, every unit, boom, 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 about a week prior to it starting. Of course, we do a new template every year, but oh well. But we tweak it as time goes on, so I can't copy and paste as much as I used to.
What do you do about, this is completely off topic, but what do you do, and somebody point of order me if need be, but what do you do if like your students are just not either getting it or they go off in another direction? Like if you hand in all your lesson plans for the entire unit before the unit starts, what kind of flexibility do you have to like go off script?
Yeah,
Just
I
out of
mean,
curiosity, it's just a curiosity.
we'll do formal, informal assessments in the beginning, just to kind of get assessment of where people are. Are you talking to me, by the way? I don't,
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
okay.
Yep,
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
But we're also asked in each individual lesson differentiation, what are we going to do every single lesson to try to get to people? Because we know people are listeners or visual or tactile. I mean, I have a huge advantage in culinary because I can smell and taste, but I have classroom lessons, and most of this is for classroom exercises. But yeah, it's just being aware, a teacher being aware and reflecting every day and saying, well, wait a minute, it's not working for this kid. I mean, the reflection time is a necessary thing, as we all know, and it's hugely valuable. And then you can kind of, okay, tomorrow's a new day and we're going to tackle, the issues that come about. But certainly, any support staff that we have available, in our district, certainly I utilize a lot of language professionals to come in, and that's good, and it's just the students, it's difficult because you don't want them to get embarrassed by somebody coming in. They might just pull them out for a few minutes and get them up to speed. But again, we have a huge advantage because we're also doing hands-on things as well. It's not only classroom. I have about 1 hour in the classroom a day, and the rest of it's hands-on.
Tina, you bring up a good point, because when a while ago, when the math curriculum was first revised, it was actually considered a work in progress, and it was looked at constantly, and it was being tweaked as they went along, or even towards the end of the year when they found out some things worked and some things didn't. So I don't think a curriculum document is a static document. It's I would assume that any curriculum you have would be tweaked along the way. Resources, whatever.
Right, because things
Okay.
change.
So motion passes on that one, correct? We didn't say
It
that.
passes,
Yeah.
except I just want to verify that
And one
Linda,
abstention from Linda,
all right,
just so,
So,
I just want to be clear. That's all.
okay. Thank you. The second part, these are classes that are requesting to be added to the program of studies for next year, 25-26. Based on our previous instruction, I'm going to assume that these will be put out to the students, and you're going to figure out how many students are interested, and then from there develop the curriculum, which would then be presented to us. So the only thing you're asking us to do right now is to just look at the course offerings as they were listed and say, yeah, okay, those sound like they're okay, but not that we're necessarily approving all the courses.
Correct. If you give us permission to put them in the program of studies, we will put them in the program of studies. And hopefully by, again, like we know business is a big thing. We know health and human services is a big thing. We know from School Links what these kids have been asking for. And then absolutely come spring, summer, we will have those curricula written and ready to go. If we decide to run it, we will give that to the Student Achievement Committee as soon as they're done. Because I agree with whoever said it earlier, the curriculum for me is different than the courses. And so if when the curriculum is written, we have a problem, you, all of us, any of us have a problem with the curriculum as written, then I think that's for us to hammer out in this committee, and figure out what's missing from the curricula and make it good for kids. If it's not good for kids, that's kind of how I feel about that. But yes, that's what we're asking you. And actually both of those two next sections is, can we add them to the program of studies, and hope that our survey information is correct and this is what the kids are asking for, and go from there.
And according to the curriculum handbook, the one that exists currently, not the one that's in the process of being edited. Can you tell it's 5 o'clock? Can you hear my dog? How pathetic she is. The phase 1 says that this phase in year 1, year 2, that a scope and sequence chart would be developed, which is attached in these documents. That's good. And that years 1 and 2, so I believe, and I don't know if this would count right now, currently today, count as year 1, or year 1 would start in September. I need advice from the group on that. But that says that phase 1 would be to review and evaluate curriculum, compare current standards and research best practices, draft priority benchmark units and courses where needed, conduct pilot units at select grade levels. So, you know, that it sounds like that's something that, like, now that we are here in this moment, that we can pick up kind of where that is right
Yeah,
here.
I agree.
I just want to make sure that the rest of the committee is in agreement with that, and that I'm not interpreting that phase incorrectly.
No, my only question is you talked about a pilot, but yet you discussed that if you pilot something, you still need the curriculum with
Well,
it.
and that's the
Yeah.
question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I agree with you, Tina. I think the we would start earlier than this, but the school year for the class would start next September. Like, that would be year 1 of the course, if we,
Right.
especially if we've never run it before.
Right.
So if we were going to run it, that's when we'd offer the teachers money to work on curriculum over the summer. And then do those things that you just read out of the curriculum handbook. You know, did we hit our mark? Is this unit not ready? You know, whatever I can't repeat what you said there, but that would be my understanding. If anyone on the committee thinks differently, but that's my take on it.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so
I just feel like we're doing it backwards, that if we're supposed to approve curriculum and the curriculum doesn't exist, then there's nothing for us to approve or not approve. If you put it in the program of studies and kids choose it, and then you have the curriculum, then you come back to us and say, we're going to run it. This is the scope and sequence we've developed, and we're going to finish it over the summer. I feel a lot more comfortable with that, even though even that is not approving a curriculum, it's approving a course title. But I am but one vote.
So that would be the initial approval on the paper what we went over last meeting, is that correct?
I believe so, yes. Mhm.
Yes, because we had the initial approval. And then after that, the final approval, that's when the curriculum will come to you for the final approval. So the initial approval is the basics of the course request document and scope and sequence, so that we are able to actually offer it in the course of studies, and then do the final approval after the curriculum is created.
right.
Right.
Okay. So is there any other discussion?
Are we talking about the next group of courses for next year?
Yeah,
In
we're
particular?
on the classes requesting to be added to the program of studies, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but I actually think that Deb was asking for the other courses at the bottom too. Just the idea, no?
Yeah, yes, either way you want to do it. Yeah, the
I just
only
thought we
difference
were
with-
chunking them by section.
Yeah, I
Right.
thought so too, but
Well,
Yeah.
the only reason those last 4 are in a separate section is I wanted to identify those as pathway courses. You know, that the bottom 2/3 to me are all the same in your approval process. But I wanted for the committee, for you guys to understand the work we continue to do with pathways, and that those are specific to our business pathway. So it's completely up to you guys. If you saw them as 2 separate things and want to talk about them separately, that's fine. But they're all in the same stage, to Tina's point about the initial approval of the discussion they just had. They're all in the same stage of development. They're not in my course booklet. They're not approved by you, and they're not out to the public, and they're not ready to run yet. but we have the scope and sequence for them. And we're ready to offer them to people to see if they're going to run. If they run and we have people to teach them, then we will indeed run them come September, August, whatever, of 2025. Does that make sense?
I think that was my question too. And I mean, we can do a motion to approve first if you want to do before discussion, Lucy, but how many of these are indicative of needing more staff?
So in order, under full disclosure, as we build our budget, oh, sorry, that was loud. I am going to ask for a business teacher, but I'm not sure it will be an extra FTE, if that makes sense, when we get all said and done. Or if there's other places which you'll know about that I'm just not ready because I haven't talked to Doug about this yet. So I don't want to if there's other places to make it an even sort of swap because of things. But
Besides the business ones, the other ones in the middle section, these are all
So-
courses that could be taught with our current teachers.
yes, Lindsay,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
And can I ask a question on the fundamentals of world culture? What is that? It
So
says
we
it's for a
currently have-
language of French.
Yeah, so we currently have a fundamentals of Spanish course that was approved, I don't know when, but that under former administration that was approved. And so we would like to change that so it can be Spanish or French. We are trying to get as many students as possible, and I think Cheryl could speak to this too, through our 1 year, hang on, my husband's leaving here.
That's only two cultures. Are we going to talk about other cultures and their language or just?
Well, because, yeah, and that's a great suggestion, Bob. We have a Spanish and a French teacher, but I suppose either at your direction or at, an idea that we could all talk about together is if we want that to be something, I won't say completely separate, but something completely different than focusing on French or Spanish, we could certainly do that. And, I would look to Tina for some help on that one because she'd be the one really to talk about. It becomes more of a history type or a culture type class. And I don't know, I would have to look at, and Tina, you would know what fits the criteria for a 1 year of world language.
Right.
And we're trying to keep it into a 1 year of world language. But
Is part of the world cultures class, is that more because at the middle school level, we're not offering as much or we're looking at kids that maybe just aren't ready for that first step to French 1 or Spanish 1 and it's an ease in, so it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a special needs course, but it could be for anyone that's just not ready to jump into that.
correct, or somebody
But
that.
look, this is, I think you may be thinking of me, who is a world language teacher, is that, no, that is not a language class. You can't give a language credit for something that is a culture class. That's a social studies class. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The kids learned English, they can learn another language. It's not the kids, it's the teachers. So to put these kids in a class like this, because someone decides that they're not ready for a Spanish 1, which is the lowest level of Spanish. How can you not be ready for it? Kids who already know language. It is unconscionable, right? It is a horrible thing to do to a kid. And I know that the intent is we need to help kids and get them this credit, but the kid isn't the problem. It's how it's being taught. Every child can take the first level of a class of a world language, and creating a culture class is not fixing a problem. It's lowering the bar wicked low for kids who don't need the bar lowered. So clearly I'm vehemently opposed to that course.
Right. In order for it to count toward the world language graduation requirement, it has to involve instruction in a language other than English. Like ASL could be an option for that too. They could also, it's a proficiency issue. And I don't know how, I mean, the question that I would have at that point is, I mean, in the interest of making it more accessible to students who haven't had it be accessible to them leading up to high school, you know, like a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of French and a little bit of Latin, just from the language educator perspective, and Linda backed me up if this is, you know, right or wrong, but like that's actually more complicated and more defeating than a full year of the same language. Do you know what
Right,
I'm
and
saying?
that would be, yeah, and that would be my thought and intention would be, we'd either run a fundamentals of Spanish
Mhm,
or
mhm,
a fundamentals of French.
mhm, mhm.
Never both, and you know, depending on where the interest lies, and you know, opinions can differ on the whole thing, but the one that is running the fundamentals of Spanish does have a full Spanish component with Spanish vocabulary, and to Linda's point, and you know, I'm not a language teacher, but it does give them access to a different language, at a speed that some of them can handle and not be ready for Spanish too. I know you disagree with me, Linda, don't yell at me.
Okay, thank you for saying that, because I was going to. Because again, by creating that class, we're letting teachers off the hook to differentiate. If a kid's language deficit is so bad that they can't take a first level class, then they should be IEP'd out. And without that IEP, every single child can take a first level class. There's, like I said, they learned English. That means they can learn a language. If a kid did not learn English, then they get IEP'd out. But there's just no reason to not put a kid in. I mean, kindergartners with no language in English learn English and a second language and Spanish. I mean, again, it's unconscionable. We're telling these kids they're dumb. If you create that class, it is 100% signaling these kids that they can't do it. And that is educational malpractice. All right, maybe that's a little bit far, but yeah. All right, I'll stop now.
Thank you for not yelling at me, and I can tell you this is, while it's not just a special ed class, it is probably mostly developed to give some of our special ed students their 1 credit in language, in a language. There are some regular ed students that do take it and then go on, regular and special ed, sorry, and go on and go through Spanish 1, Spanish 2 in that case. So, you know, I do think we were trying to level the playing field in some places, Linda, that all of our students, IEP'd or not, I don't want to IEP a kid out of something, you're right, I think now we actually agree to something that they can access, but their access to learning a language is different than others. And that's what I think this class was trying to accomplish when it was approved years ago. Tina, you were there when it was approved. I don't know if you remember, but do you agree with me, Tina, that that was kind of the intent of this when the world language thing came in? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember. I really don't remember. I wish I did, but I don't. I don't remember what year it was. And I don't remember the discussion, which means it was probably more than 4 or 5 years ago, because I really started watching board meetings in earnest, like right before COVID. So I don't know. Do any of the language, and I don't want to put this on like it's because of XYZ. I'm not here to diagnose why students are not quite ready. Like it's an intro class, right? So I teach 2 sections of Italian, 2 sections of Italian 1, I should say. And there are kids who are either they've taken languages for years and want to try something new, or they've never taken a language because they were IEP'd out of a language and now they're taking the first year. And it is a very interesting dynamic. And it is difficult. The differentiation doesn't look in an Italian 1 class as it does in like an Italian, like I also teach an international and baccalaureate Italian class. Anyway. But there are a lot of really good PD opportunities, like their professional learning series through like CT Colt. I don't know if, you know, any of the staff ever get sent to those. Their organizational webinars, networking initiatives, conferences, all that stuff. That is, you know, that, I mean, those are really helpful too, that might help. And I'm not saying in place of the fundamentals of Spanish, but you know, those are just things to look at. To Linda's point, if the kids are getting to the high school and they're not quite sure yet, there are reasons for that. I mean, and they can be addressed for sure. It's good to hear though that the fundamentals course does include language, because that is one of the requirements of, you know, so that they can get their credit. It has to include the language. Jamie, are you raising? Jamie's raising. Hi, Jamie.
I don't know if it's a requirement or not, but the state of Connecticut is offering a seal of biliteracy for high school diplomas. So I don't know if that's something. I know I've been getting a lot of students pulled out that already can have it because they're proficient in English and also they're proficient in Spanish. I'm like, that's a huge advantage. Take the
Yeah.
damn test, get it on your
Yeah, we have
diploma.
that.
We do.
Yeah.
Kate Germond does run that, yep. And I think in both Spanish and French, that we have a lot more Spanish that qualify than French.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, there's more opportunity.
Any other comments? I shouldn't ask that. It's already almost 5:15. We'll get it by 5:30. So with this middle section and with the comments that we've had, at this point, we need a motion to approve the course, approve the offering of these courses with a curriculum to be developed and presented to the Board of Ed for approval by June. We'll say by June. Do we want to do anything with the fundamentals of world cultures? It does exist. Are we going to include that?
Lindsay, can you write
could we-
July? Lindsay, can you write, I mean, Lucy, can you write July? Just because if school gets out late, they'll want time right after school gets out to get paid to write the curriculum. Thank you.
Right. And then
Could we chunk it out and vote on the fundamentals of world culture separately? Since that seems to be the only discussion.
okay, so let's vote on to approve the biomedical exploration course, the introduction to sociology and music in our lives courses.
I'll make that motion I'll make a
present-
motion to approve biomedical exploration, intro to sociology and music in our lives.
Okay, with a curriculum to be developed and presented to the board by July. And I have a second,
Second.
Tina.
Can we also write in there if the course is to run? If the course is determined to run,
By July, if the course,
is
Is-
determined to run.
yes, is
Thank you.
determined.
Linda, were you going to say something too? I saw your little black splash screen.
No, someone already, I wanted someone to say something about that fundamentals, whether it was in this vote or not. So I'm good now.
Okay.
All right, so we've voted on, I think, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Is that you, Linda? Because I don't know if you lit up here.
Yeah, Linda abstained.
Yep, sorry, that was me.
Linda abstain. Okay, now, what are we going to do about the fundamentals of world cultures?
For purpose of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve fundamentals of world cultures.
I'll second to open up the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, and the rest of it will include the same verbiage that we used for the one just before it.
Mhm.
Correct.
Be developed for curriculum to be developed, et cetera. Lindsay and Tina. Okay,
If it
Just-
makes the committee's life easier, I was the one who put world cultures. It's really the teacher who wanted it to be French. So it would follow, we already have Spanish and we just improved that to French. I made it one so we could just go back and forth, and maybe that was a mistake, but it would have a French component, that class. The language would be in, French. It would not be, to Bob's point, a history culture class of different cultures. It would be a language component class in French. So I don't know if that helps the committee or, whichever, but that would be the intention, and I could change the name if the committee thought that was a better use of verbiage.
Yeah, on
And
one of the sheets you have world language and on the other you have world cultures. So it's got two different names.
It's already got two different, now it's got 30.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I was just gonna say, why don't you call it pre-French? If it's not gonna be a French one, it's gonna be something else. If you're gonna try to teach French, you gotta try to teach it some way. Maybe you could say conversational French, where it's just about, teaching kids how to order a beer when they get out of high school. I mean,
Nice.
at least it's a language that,
We call that a transferable skill, Bob.
yeah, I know. I mean,
Don't you just need an app for that? You just have to have an app. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's things that people should know. I mean, where's the bathroom, how to buy a beer, how to get your lunch. If it's conversational French, maybe it's something that would classify as a language. I don't know. Linda would probably jump all over me or Tina, but if the issue is that you're trying to teach kids who have real difficulty in language, like teach them something they can use.
It's really, so I don't want to get into the weeds here with world language teaching, but there is an approach to world language teaching called comprehensible input, which does just that. And it's super possible, and in fact, better for language learning to approach the acquisition the same way we learned our mother language. And you can do that in an Italian 1 class, like with comprehensible input, my kids can order pizza, and they can have all those skills, and on their transcript, it will still say Italian 1. I don't think it has to be a pre-class in order
Exactly.
to do that.
Yeah, and I think this kind of, looking at this discussion, it kind of tells us, we need to bring world languages to student achievement, really have a long discussion about goals and objectives and what we want for world languages. And I mean, not for nothing, but we've never removed Latin from our program, but we're no longer providing Latin. So, and I know that's a topic that comes up a lot. We look at ASL, even though it's still in the same realm. I just think we have some work to do here before we're approving something new or addition to something. Just my opinion.
Linda, did you have any further thoughts?
No, I was just gonna echo what Tina said, that again, if it's taught well, if it's taught well, anyone can take the first and succeed in the first level of a language.
It sounds like we want to put this particular course on hold and not to approve it. That's what I'm hearing.
Let's take a vote on it.
Yeah. So right now we have on the table to approve the fundamentals of world cultures. All those in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay, the vote does not pass.
So let's just make a commitment to get to the Student Achievement Committee on the agenda next, so it doesn't get in the weeds and we don't forget about it and make it a priority.
Yep.
I'll talk to Kate Germont too and make sure she knows Tina, and I think not too far into spring, but I think that certainly can be a February, March conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Deb.
Okay, and with 8 minutes to go, we have the last 5 courses, which I'm going to assume would be in the future, or you might consider offering them in the fall of 25.
They would be offered in this, yep, in the upcoming 25-26 school year. Our interest surveys, like I said before, I won't take up the whole 8 minutes. The interest surveys indicated that business is actually this year, especially for the kids coming up, on top of health and human services. Last year it was switched, which is why we went that direction in our pathways work. And so we're trying to.
Oh, we frozen.
Deb froze.
So we're trying to expand. We're trying to expand the pathway work, and in doing so, we would be offering these courses next that could be articulated courses as well as for our dual enroll program.
I have some questions on it, but I'll make the motion to approve the courses to expand the business pathway, esports, business law, managerial finance, computer applications, and marketing too.
So moved.
And we're going to continue to add the curriculum to be developed and presented to the board for approval by July, if the course is determined to run.
Yes.
Okay, so Lindsay made the motion. Second,
Tina.
Tina.
Yes, I seconded.
Okay, discussion.
So on this one, sorry, Bob, go ahead, you go first.
I just wondered if the students are gonna teach the esports course.
No, am I frozen still? I
Are
moved.
you sure? Cause
You know
I-
what? They probably could, but no. So what, I was just asking Katie if I'm still frozen. Sorry, by text.
Either or not.
So no, when we were looking into this and we attached some of the stuff, it's really involved. They're not going to just sit and play the games. They have to develop the games, and it's fascinating when we were reading on it. So there's a chance, you're not wrong. But again, like, we would be looking for someone if we hired an FTE and these ran, or we'd be training our business, like say esports, to your point, Bob, say we had 50 kids that wanted to take it. So we decided to run 4 sections. I don't know that we would do that because we still have personal finance and marketing and all the ones that already exist. But we would, and we didn't get another teacher. We're going to meet these, I want to meet these kids where they are. And if that is a high area of interest, we will train Ryan Doniker on how to teach, we'll make sure he has what he needs with the help of Matt Thompson to teach that class or any of those classes that are of high interest to the students in the registration process.
I would throw out there, if you haven't already looked at Generation Esports, their curriculum is pretty cool because it looks at not just the game development and the playing of the games, but it talks about how you become a broadcaster and how do you, and they have a SEL component that's kind of played into that as well, because if anyone's been online playing these multi-person multiplayer games, it's an ugly social setting. And so the Generation Esports curriculum really goes into all the big circle and tries to pound out a lot of the misogyny and racism that's very prevalent in those games online. So I don't get a kickback, but it's a pretty great curriculum and company.
I think also, Linda, if I'm not mistaken, it does a huge ethics piece. And that's a huge piece of the esports is the ethics. More, you mentioned some, but all the ethics around it, the cheating and the making a game that's not quite fair and all those things that we learned as kids. So
Right. And I'll say that a lot of, like, Hartford uses Generation Esports. A lot of the big districts, Griswold, who are doing it, have partnered with Jenny, and so they're gaining a lot of traction in the state, which is important in that the tournaments keep getting bigger and bigger and better funded. So highly recommend.
Yeah, and I had a really good opportunity to sit down with Westbrook's Board of Ed for a while, and talk about some of their pathways and how they're presenting them online. And, you know, they raved about a lot of these business courses, and they said that, you know, with personal finance being a requirement, this was a way for people to get involved and actually like these personal finance courses without being forced to join them. You know, it's giving them different perspectives. What I'd love to see, and it's kind of out of the realm of approving these, but it'd be great if we could mirror or close to mirror what Westbrook's doing with their pathways. If you type in pathways Westbrook, it comes up and it shows the pathway summary, the courses, the AP and dual enrollment credit opportunities, the key businesses and industries that are currently working those pathways. And I know we're not quite where they are, but I do have hope that, you know, we'll get there, because I think the more we can get our students and families to go online and see, oh, this is what the pathway is. You know, it's not just we have a business pathway, it's giving us a real rubric and well, path, so to speak, to look at that. So I'm excited for a lot of these, and I think the kids are too. I think this is an area where a lot of even the middle school kids you'll see pretty excited about it.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's
That's all
funny
I'd
to
say.
see as the person who taught computers for a long time. It's fun to see computer applications back in action because it's such a valuable skill. And then to read through the description and see that there will be a certification the kids will leave with, like, that's great. That's fantastic. And, you know, Matt Thompson does such a good job with resume building with the kids. You know, adding that to it is like another, I don't know, pin in the lapel. I don't even know what, but you know,
Yeah.
another thing, another skill, another tangible accomplishment that they're going to leave the high school with. So that's exciting.
I think you see
Lindsay-
any course with Matt Thompson and Ryan Donaker in it, and I know they're going to be successful. You know,
Right,
they
100%.
they're amazing in their own realms. I can't imagine what they'll do together. So
Right, and Lindsay, to your point, we have sat down before we started our work with University of Bridgeport and Salmenzo. It was Matt and Katie, sat down with the Westbrook people, and we have their book on our shelf, and every time we work on this, we pull out the Westbrook book. So, and I work closely with the principal. So yeah, that is definitely something we're going to tap as we develop these more and more. I agree.
yeah, and they were saying a lot of it too was, you know, having that on the website got the families excited to push their kids to get really involved. As a, you know, I know we do a lot. We
Love
want
that.
kids to
Yeah,
really
that's a
talk
great
about
idea.
what they're doing, but some of these kids are not self-motivated, and it takes a long time before they are maybe even like almost graduated. So
Mhm.
getting the parents to see, oh, you could do this when you graduate, it'll give a little bit of a push. So I think it'll be good.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve these 5 courses. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Linda abstain. Okay, so the motion passes with 1 abstention. Okay. We kind of covered 2 things under curriculum review, the course proposal acceptance, as well as the scope and sequences and all. So we're on item number 7 at 5:30, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tina and
Second, Lindsay.
second, all in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, have a great evening.
Good night,
Linda,
everybody.
are you staying on this one or not?
No, she said aye.
No, I am all I, my friend.
I'm sorry, I had to bug you. All right, guys, take it
Good night.
out.
Tina,
Bye,
you'll
Linda.
follow
Thank you so
up
much.
with